Bob says it's 7 o'clock. Maybe that thing's a little bit slow. We'll move on. Welcome everyone to the town board meeting for Monday, October 3rd, 2011. I call the meeting to order. Let's go minutes of our September 6th, 2011 meeting minutes. Those with our agenda packages. What says the board?
I make a motion to approve.
Motion, we have a second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Is that all? Did we just speak at one time? So it's all in the same minutes, that's right.
Who seconded it? Somebody down there.
Berlin.
Yeah.
All right. We got a public hearing starting at 7:05, so we can take care of a couple of matters before then. Larry Moses, stand up, Larry. Larry's been with the Franklin Police Department how many years?
30 years, 8 months.
How many days in a year?
And you've been, and off and on you've been covering meetings for about how long?
A couple of years.
Okay, well this will be your last meeting?
Will be my last one.
Who you breaking in to take the place?
No, we ain't got that far along.
Larry, good to have you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Okay. Is Debbie Roberts here?
She is.
Come on up here, Debbie. Move down to number 8. We got a proclamation. Got any cameras?
Come to you.
Yeah, Debbie. Just stand right there and briefly tell us what it is that you're here for.
I am Debbie Roberts. I'm president of NAMI Appalachian South. NAMI is the National Alliance on Mental Illness. How many of you are familiar with NAMI?
You were here last time.
Well, I know, but I want to see if you all paid any attention.
Of course.
Good, okay. We are a very small but very active group of family members as well as consumers of mental illness and their services. As a very small group, we do quite a bit in the area, as much as we can with the few people we have, but we teach classes called Family to Family. We have been able to teach 2 of those. They're 12-week classes, and they're for family members, those with a mental illness. Basically, honestly, it's kind of to teach the family members how to deal with the person with a mental illness without them actually feeling like they're losing their mind themselves. It's truly that. We're we help with law enforcement, crisis intervention, team training. We are thrilled with that. That is a jail diversion and de-escalation. Bob Scott's quite familiar and works with us with that. NAMI has been able to help with 3 different classes, 2 here in Macon County. That's 40-hour for law enforcement. We have over 25 officers in Macon County, and we do have police officers. We keep working on them. And I sure hope you don't remember me from my time when I was in my great balance. But also, I think part of what we work so hard for still is stigma. Let's remember, this is a biological illness. This is a very treatable illness. Anytime you have any issues, questions, please don't hesitate to let some of us in NAMI know. And just to put a face on it, less than 4 years ago, I was laying on a sidewalk here in Franklin about to die at my own hand. I was led to do that because of a treatable illness. Unbeknownst to me, I was just 2 blocks from the hospital. My life was saved. I was then put into a little facility that I had not been familiar with that actually was not a bad experience, but my life was changed when I was introduced to NAMI. Now, I've been diagnosed 20-something years to everything that could be done. I had never been introduced to NAMI. It's basically, it teaches us about the illness, how to treat it, how to live with it, what's going on. It's educating ourselves and others and getting rid of the stigma. So it is a very effective program. And we would like to ask the proclamation for Mental Illness Awareness Week.
And that's the one that you presented
It
here?
is.
And it's, whereas serious mental illnesses such as major depression, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, obsessive compulsive disorder, severe anxiety disorders, borderline personality disorder, and post-traumatic stress disorders affects 1 in every 4 people annually. And whereas serious mental illnesses are more common than cancer, diabetes, and heart disease, and are the #1 reason for hospital admissions nationwide. And whereas serious mental illnesses have been scientifically proven to be highly treatable illnesses of the brain, and whereas scientific research is producing tremendous breakthroughs in the understanding of mental illnesses, resulting in more effective treatments that allow people to reclaim full and productive lives, and whereas misunderstandings exist about many mental illnesses in our social culture, often wrongly imposes stigma on them. Now I therefore proclaim, I, Joe Collins, Mayor of the town of Franklin, do hereby proclaim October 3rd, 2011 through October 9th, 2011 as Mental Illness Awareness Week in the town of Franklin to increase public awareness of mental illness. Come on around here, Debbie. Is there a motion from the board that I sign this proclamation?
So moved.
Second. All in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed? Be glad to do that. Let me pass this down to Janet for her attesting my signature. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you so very much.
Mhm.
Thanks for allowing it.
Okay. All right. We move now to a public hearing for the request by Chuck Holland for a special use application. Public hearing is the opportunity for people to come and be heard briefly about whether they're for or against this special use application. And it's a precursor for them a little bit later in the meeting. The board will have a chance to take it up under consideration. I see Mr. Holland is here with us. Is there anybody here who wants to be heard on this special use application? Yes, ma'am. If you would step up to the microphone, tell us who you are and what is your connection with the property and what you want to tell us about.
Okay, I am a member of the area there in that community.
What is your name?
Oh, I'm sorry, Yvonne Rogers.
Okay, Yvonne.
Some of the properties that connect with Mr. Holland's property have been having runoff, and as the years have went on, it's been about 5 years since he, I believe, started the project, or his mobile home park, I guess is what you call it. To my understanding, there's several things that should have been done that maybe weren't done to keep this from happening. Some of the properties, some of the people are here that the runoff has stopped up the ditches and caused a problem when it's rainy and the weather's bad. We just think that there's maybe some things that shouldn't have been done or should have been done that weren't done maybe in the beginning to keep this from happening, or maybe some things that need to be done to keep it from getting any worse. We've attended a couple of other meetings before this, and Mr. Holland was turned down from their point of view, and I know I'm stammering around because I don't know exactly what to say as far as
You're just saying you're not in favor of it?
I'm not in favor of it. I'm probably not hurt as bad as some of the other neighbors, but it does follow on down to me. So.
All right, thank you, Ms. Rogers. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
My name's Joan Welch, and I live at the end of Memory Lane. And My concern is the safety for the road, because it's one-way road. And then, like, when it rains real bad, the water runs off the hill and down the road, and it does damage to our road.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am?
I'm Wanda Cave, and I live directly below where Mr. Holland was gonna put two more homes. Anyway, if he does that, there'll have to be a driveway directly straight up through there, and one more driveway, we don't think we can stand it below it. And, we object.
Anyone else? Yes, ma'am?
I'm Joan Keener Hicks. My property adjoins the property that's in question here. My driveway goes up, well, it's the next driveway just past his. It's not more than 20, 25 feet, or approximately that distance. I'm not real good at distances, but it's about that distance. We finally got him to do a little ditching so that where our water goes, where the water should go under our driveway, it actually wasn't, because it was stopped up. Well, in the meantime, the ditch that he did not do correctly to start with, it filled up. There is a lot of noise there are 4 mobile homes in there now. There's already lots of noise. We really don't feel safe, and we just don't feel that there should be any more homes go in there. They are not quality homes. The homes that are in there are old. There are 3 homes sitting there that, there are 4 that are occupied. There's 3 sitting there that are just sitting there. They are not even blocked up adequately. They actually are a hazard. If anybody got around them, they could fall very easily because they're not set up. He did say in a prior meeting that he was going to take 2 of those out and probably try to fix the other one up. But we just don't need any more old mobile homes out there in that area.
All right, thank you, John. Anyone else? Mr. Holland, you want to be heard?
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Seems like we've met before on a couple of occasions, one at least. Before we start, may I do a handout of the little maps we have to kind of identify what we're talking about, and the objection to what you've heard from the neighbors here, and so forth. We'll talk about that. Maybe I have enough to go around here. So you have 8, I think. At the sheriff's.
I think it is in the package.
One left, you like it. Let me start off from the time this really began. Back in '05, the owners of this property approached me as in trouble about with the payments. I bought this property, paid cash for it for $85,000. That's $40,000 an acre with the very intent. But before I bought the property, I paid a visit to the Macon County Code Enforcement, talked to Jack, and I quizzed him on if what size lots that I could put in there. He said the county has no restrictions on what size lots. And I explained to him at that time what I'd like to do is put mobile homes in, cut it up into lots and sell them off. And he didn't tell me anything about it. I never heard of the word or the phrase ETJ. No one ever mentioned that to me. I bought the property, had it surveyed, I go in, and get permits for the, you might notice on your plat there, number 7 and, or 6 and 8. Have 2 mobile homes on there that has septic systems in. I also applied for mobile home for septic tanks for number 5 and 6, 5 and 7. If you look on the flip side, you say where it has been approved by the Macon County Environmental Health, which I have not put those in due to the problem that I found out I was facing with this ETJ. I'm paying the taxes to the Macon County. I'm having to deal with the town of Franklin unexpectedly. When I went to look at this property before, it was a pasture land, 2 dead dogs in an old barn, about 8 or 9 other dogs tied up to every tree around there. I bought the property, had to take a track hoe in with a dump truck and clean the place up. I guess the neighbors didn't appreciate that at all. So when I go in, and I did put the 2 mobile homes in, I which had 2 before we, on the number 3 and 5. And I was unable to do anything due to the problem with the ETJ here. It seems to me that the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. I advised the county that there's no restrictions on what size lots I could put in here. I bought it on that premise. And the county didn't tell me that there was a problem, that the town of Franklin was going to intervene. So here I am now, I'm going in to try to get a special use permit to complete the project that I originally bought this property for. I say I paid $40,000 an acre. I think that's as much as any lot we sell in the town of Franklin here that would be permissible for that. I put other mobile homes in the town of Franklin before, but like a 1/3 acre or a 1/4 acre lots on Autumn Hayes, Collins Lane, other places around. I had no problems. I didn't expect a problem even after I found out the ETJ was involved here. So I go down and talk to the girl. I don't recall her name. Was in your town office. Took my little plant that I'm showing you here. She explained to me there'd be no problem on me putting the septic system in on the 5 and 7, and also in 2 and 4. And I based this upon the information that I gathered from your town hall, your town lady. I don't recall what her name was. You probably know who I may be talking about. That was about 4 years ago. I'm just asking for a special use. And backing up on what we're talking about here on these objections, I have a problem with the neighbors to the point is they complain about drainage. It's the same property that was there when I bought the property. So there's been no change except I did put a driveway in. And I have kept the ditch clean every year except this year. And we'll see what the future holds without me continue to do that with my track hoe, my tractor, and my dump truck, whatever. We have cleaned the ditch out. It has filled up. It was even that way when we bought the property. So I'm very cooperative, and if someone will just give me a call, we have the equipment, we can take care of these problems. And speaking of noise, I have talked to the other neighbors. They have no complaints about noise. We have a group that's this objection to me advancing on what I'm trying to do here. It's putting a bad light in the face of the board members here due to the things that came up. I even had one of the other meters once said there was a drug dealer there. Well, there's never been any drug dealers going in that property. I do not tolerate such, okay? And the noise that they're talking about, there's a brick home over there. They've had a big bonfire going with all kind of loud noise. I was there one night and heard all the noise, so they may know who it is. So all the noise, if there's any noise at all, is not created. The little 4 units I have in there now. I'm just requesting the board that follows through with, you can see the problems I've had here from the right hand to the left hand, not knowing what one is doing. And now the town is at the mercy of the town, so to speak, to get this completed so I can finish it up in what it looks like a presentable place. I want to put entrance to it, make it look decent with paved driveway. Naturally with the gravel, you're going to have some wash off when we get rain. With a paved driveway and a ditch property, we won't have that problem. So I'd ask the board to give it consideration and let me complete my project.
Thank you, Chuck. Anyone else to be heard on this special use application? Close the public hearing for that Chuck Collins special use application. Now we're moving to a public hearing regarding the rezoning request of Mildred Rice and others on Lindy Gap property. I know some of you folks are here for that request. I'll ask first, are there anyone here to be heard who oppose the rezoning request? Yes, sir?
I have a question, is why is the town, if we're outside of the city limits there, and that place is outside the city limits, as far as I know, wherever it is, and if it ever has been zoned in the city and whatever it is, I've lived here 26 years, and I've never got any kind of notice that it was. So I really question why this is a matter for the town of Franklin.
The extraterritorial jurisdiction allows the town to go within 1 mile of their corporate limits for zoning and control type purposes. It's a creature of statute from the state legislature. We had adopted it some time back, not as long as Mr. Holland, whenever he was about buying his property. How many?
Both of those areas were in excess of 20 years.
They've been, okay, those areas have been ETJ for, okay, it's just the way the legislature and the government has allowed it to develop. You have a corporate limits and you have a 1 more mile that you can allow for zoning. You don't collect taxes on it, that's for sure.
Joe, if you could
Yeah. Robbie Robinson?
Yes, sir.
Hadn't seen you in a while. Good to see you, Robbie. Okay. With that said, anybody want to speak against it? Anybody briefly want to speak for it? But that said, close the public hearing on this request. We'll be taking up these matters very briefly among the board. Next on our agenda is to set the public hearing for Verizon Wireless Cell Towers site, WildNet, at the end of Gaston Street. So Sam, what are we looking at here?
Okay, basically Verizon Wireless has provided an application for a cell tower to be located on a lot that's been subdivided to accommodate that tower. At the end of Gaston Street, if you drive up Gaston, it'll be on the right or the east side of Gaston, right at basically the end. There is one access with a farm-style fence on it that's the area that they're talking about. That in the application, which was initially presented to the town in April of last year, there were some problems in getting information from Verizon as to why they needed to locate that in a residential neighborhood. And as a result of that, in the notice that you have, and we've got to set a special hearing, but in the notice you have, the planning board is recommending denial of that. At this point, the only other option that we have now is to set a public hearing for that. I would suggest that that be done for November 7th of this year. Regular board meeting.
Mr. Mayor, as the board schedules that special use hearing, I just remind you that, as with all special use hearings, it's a quasi-judicial procedure. The board members are not to make their decision on anything but the evidence presented in the hearing on it. I think there's a pretty high likelihood of you hearing from community members as we move toward that, and maybe from the other party as well. As we move toward that hearing date, you cannot speak to them about that matter outside of a hearing. If they have evidence that they want to come and present at the hearing, then that's the time and place for it. But that's how you need to handle anyone who wants to discuss the Verizon cell tower siting with you between now and that special hearing.
Thank you. So was there a motion that we set a hearing with our November 7th meeting? What would be a good time to do that? 7:05?
I'll make a motion, we set it November 7th.
Berlin, motion, Billy, second. Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed? Okay, that'll be November 7th, 7:05. Public session is the time to be heard briefly, not on matters involving these public hearings, but if you're here for other matters that you feel like you wanted to bring to our attention, There was a sign-up sheet with no names on it, but sometimes people don't know there's a sign-up sheet, so I'm gonna give anybody an opportunity if they want to be heard briefly at this time. We appreciate all of you coming and being with us tonight. Being no takers, then let's move on to margin 7 for the board's consideration. First of all, on the Chuck Holland special use application. Summer Woodard, do you want to, first of all, Summer, give us a little bit of background on this, please.
Okay. The parcel included in the application is about 2.1 acres. The existing unsubdivided property currently has a vacant house and 5 manufactured housing units on it. The owner presently desires to add 2 additional units to the property. The property is currently zoned R1, is non-conforming, is in the town's ETJ. The owner desires not to subdivide the property, and the planned manufactured home development zone is the only way to add additional units to the property.
Okay. And what is your, you understand that procedurally, where have we been in this?
Yes.
Been with the planning board?
The planning board makes a recommendation to deny the special use permit application based on the following findings of fact, and I'm prepared to go over those with you if you'd like.
Well, on the finding of fact, was the use or development located, designed, and proposed to be operated so as to maintain or promote the public health, safety, or general welfare?
The current use is non-conforming and the property is below UDO minimums in size, and the town board could approve a smaller use for a smaller parcel, but due to existing conditions on this parcel, the planning board did not recommend doing so.
And do you, in your capacity, recommend it either?
No, I do not.
And moving on, does the use or the development conform with the general plans for the physical growth of development of the town as embodied in this ordinance, the principles of growth, the thoroughfare plan, and any other duly adopted plans of this town? I'm looking at number F.
Number F, the use or development does not conform with the general plans for the physical development of the following that you stated, the growth, the thoroughfare, or any other duly adopted plans of the town.
And in the opinion of the planning board, in your opinion, has the applicant met the burden of establishing the findings of fact necessary to have a special use permit?
No, the applicant has not met the burden of establishing the permit.
Now, the board, time to jump in if y'all got questions, comments, further talk with Summer, to talk among yourselves.
Well, the property being non-conforming at the present time, to add more to it only makes it less conforming. And it certainly doesn't meet the criteria in our current UDO. And for that reason, the lots do not even meet the minimum required standards. He does have an option of subdividing the property if he so feels that he can do that, but I personally do not recommend that we do that.
Is that in the form of a motion?
Yes, I'll make a motion we deny it.
I'll second it.
There's got a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I would ask you if it's the board's intent to adopt the planning board's findings, is that, I mean, was that part of your
Yes,
motion?
yeah.
Okay.
So we got a motion to adopt the findings of the planning board and deny the request for the special use application, and we have a second. Discussion? All in favor of the motion, raise your hand. Any opposed? Special use application fails. Now we'll move on to consideration of the Windy Gap, Mildred Rice, and others rezoning requests. Mike, can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, they, the Rice group, there's a list of all the property owners that's attached to the petition. There are 10 parcels involved in this with 6 owners, 6 separate owners. There's 12.36 acres involved, so it's not a spot zoning issue, but they are requesting rezoning from R1 to R2, which is a legislative decision, not a special use. They would like to be able to locate a mobile home on that property, what we call a manufactured home, on one of the parcels, and potentially have other family members be able to do that. In order to do that, they would have to subdivide for future use. If it's got a house on the property already, they would have to subdivide one of those parcels to create another home site. And then they could place a manufactured home on that site. So that's as a requirement of the UDO. They cannot create a trailer park by that because the R1 zoning only allows, or the R2 zoning rather, only allows 1 unit per lot. So they would have to subdivide parcels, which adds to the process that they have to go through to do that. There are at least a couple people here that are involved in that, and this is a situation where the health department had issued the okay for a septic permit, and then the situation kind of fell apart because when the inspector came, I guess he was told that to go ahead and put the trailer in place and then go to the county, and when he did, he was told to come here, and he found out that he'd been in the ETJ for about 20 years. So at this point, he did request a change in zoning so that could be, certificate of occupancy could eventually be issued for that property.
Questions?
The planning board did recommend approval on that.
Discussion from the board?
I think they've gone through the steps that they had to go through.
Yeah, I went out and looked at that too, and I would make the motion that we approve it if there's no further discussion.
I'll second. Motion to approve in a second. Now, is there discussion after the motion and the second from the board?
They're well aware of that if another family wanted to come on, that you do have to divide.
Painfully aware.
Yes, sir.
Motion and a second. All in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. All opposed, that passes. All right, we're gonna take about a 5-minute break.
Well, of course, that's always a question.
All righty, we'll be back in session now. We've gotten down to the bottom. So now know where to go up from here. We've got Mr. Tim Hubbs with us. He's the Chief Executive Officer of Angel Medical Center. Of course, Angel, they were a recipient of $3,000 from the town for one of their projects, and they've had a recent merger with Mission Hospital, so we thought it'd be a good time if Tim would come and just brief us on kind of where the hospital is presently, and be able to answer any questions that the board or people in the crowd may have. Tim, it's good to have you with us.
Thank you very much. I appreciate y'all making a little time for me on the agenda. The nice thing is I'm not going to ask any favors tonight. We do appreciate the $3,000 that you gave to us. I think sometimes we don't tell the story enough about what it costs to run our hospital. I'm pretty passionate about the hospital. That's no secret. I think y'all understand passion, or you wouldn't have the jobs that you have today. What I want to do is give you a little bit of information about how we're governed, segueing into a little bit about the affiliation with Mission, and a little bit about some of the questions that may have been brought up in the last few weeks. First of all, our board is made up of 18 men and women from our community. They each serve 4 years, a maximum of 2 terms of 4 years. They are not paid for what they do. They do it free of charge. They spend a lot of time with us. The makeup of the board, we have usually a minimum of 3 physicians. 2 of those are elected by the medical staff, the physicians themselves. We usually have 1 or 2 attorneys. We have 1 or 2 CPAs. We usually have a representative from either social services and or public health. Sometimes that might be somebody that works in those departments or maybe is on their board. We also have now 3 representatives from Mission Health System since May, and I'll tell you a little bit about that in just a moment. And of course, we also have businessmen and women on our board that might have people that are covered by their insurance policies, but also might provide their expertise. In May of 2011, we announced through the newspapers that we had signed a long-term management agreement with Mission Health System. That is, they are going to manage our hospital, help manage our hospital. They don't tell us everything. We still have the right. The 18 men and women said, hey, we need to be able to say grace over what happens in our town, what happens with our hospital. But what we were able to do is negotiate a way where they can help us manage, but we can also have some of that say-so. But we were able to capture some of their expertise, both on administrative and clinical areas, as well as get their buying power, which is really what helps us the most. All of our decisions related to merging with Mission was reached at a unanimous decision by our board. We have had 0 negative feedback from any of our medical staff inside the meetings or outside. We've had 0 negative public opinions. So at least so far from what people know, they're okay with this decision. Some people have questioned, well, did they buy the hospital? Did they pay our bills? Did they give us a lot of money? And the answer is no. They are managing our hospital. We are working through a long-term relationship. We might try to see if we can get closer. There are advantages, but there's also disadvantages. So our board over the next 10 or so years will say, what's the right relationship? So we're, I guess, in a heavy dating period at this point in time. We are... I can tell you, while they have infused no dollars, they don't pay our bills, they're not responsible for our bills, they have had significant impact financially on our institution. They have guaranteed our debt really for the last 2 or 3 years, saved us several $100,000 a year. They have included us whenever they're negotiating contracts for equipment or services. They can sometimes get us the same deal they get. They will sometimes guarantee what our bills are so that we can get a better deal. And those dollars are still accumulating. We're still learning the best way of doing it, but they negotiate on our behalf many times. Sometimes we can get services free. Also, recently we had representatives from their foundation come over and meet with our foundation to try to teach us ways of reaching out to the public and things that have worked for them. But they've also taken some of their funds and they're going to take care of some of the things in Macon County. They're going to contribute some things for large venues like the Smoky Mountain Performing Arts Center, make sure there's medical equipment needed there that they provide. There's some ultrasounds that we can't find coverage for so far for our local residents that don't have the ability to pay, and they're going to try to fund those. And so we're just still in the birth stages, but we are very excited about the potential. I also wanted to mention that as far as our corporate status, I think there may have been some question about exactly how we were structured. We are a private, not-for-profit hospital. And what does that mean? The private means we're not owned by the county or not owned by the state or the town. Some towns have that. I think Haywood, for instance, is controlled by the county. We were organized really back in 1933, 10 years after the Angels started the hospital. You all will probably recognize the names on that original. It was A.B. Slagle, R.A. Patton, and R.S. Jones. So from the very beginning, we know who was involved. Really, 23 years later, in 1956, the IRS gave us a letter and said, yeah, we confirm you are a tax-exempt entity for federal tax purposes under 501c3, which everybody hears. And most not-for-profits, other than churches and schools, fall under that category. We have maintained that status since 1956. Mission Hospital is under the same status. They are a private, not-for-profit hospital. The not-for-profit means none of the dollars that are earned by the hospital go to pay any stockholder. They're all put right back into our mission and to the hospital. At our board meetings, we have some pretty private conversations. As you can appreciate, in a hospital setting, we're going to be reviewing whether it's a lawsuit against the hospital or the hospital might have against someone else, or maybe a doctor. We credential physicians to make sure are they somebody good enough for our community and for our hospital. We do that same thing with mid-levels, what we call a nurse anesthetist or physician assistants, and that's if they do not only inside our hospital but outside and refer things to our hospital. We also talk about patients and obviously personnel matters, and there's a lot of things we cover that if you were in a public setting you'd have to go in executive session a lot. All of our board members sign a confidentiality when they start. We make them sign it every year. They also sign a conflict of interest statement every year. And we are pretty in tune to that. I'm very thankful that there's no good old boy deals going on that, hey, we give this business to somebody because they know somebody. And obviously we want to support the local community, but we aren't doing it at the disadvantage of the hospital or the community. As far as and that's part of the reason we keep our meetings closed to the public. It's not because we're trying to hide something. It's because what the issues we're dealing with are fairly confidential. But I do want you to know we have lots of oversight. Not to mention the 18 volunteers, board members that I mentioned, and medical staff, but we also are licensed by the state, not just for the hospital, but a lot of the different operations. Medicare and Medicaid have lots of things to tell us and rules that we have to abide by. And if we don't abide by those, they let us know. We are also accredited by a joint commission and never lost that accreditation throughout the entire time period. We also have multiple other entities that accredit our radiology departments, our lab departments, home health and hospice. We have lots of people communicating to us. There's also a couple things that I think that may be of value to you all or to the public. We also are required by Medicare to pay an outside firm to poll our patients. And that's whether it's inpatient, home health, sometimes ER, some of the others. And they also gather data from us about some quality standards, and they post that on the web. So you can go, and I'm going to hand you all out some things if you want to keep it, you can, to medicare.gov. There's a tab right on the left that says, let me look about hospitals and doctors, and you can say, I would like to compare Angel Medical Center with Harris and Haywood or anybody else in the country that you'd like to compare it to. And they'll show you how we compare to those other hospitals, and they'll tell you how we compare in the state and nationwide. And I'm very proud to say, and of course I told you I was passionate, I'm very proud that we do very well in those comparisons. In fact, as far as patient satisfaction scores in West North Carolina, there's nobody that has higher scores than we do. As far as the surgical measures, nobody has better scores than we do. In fact, we're in the top 10% in the nation. We also have the shortest turnaround times in the ER in the studies that have been done in Western North Carolina. It doesn't mean that we're perfect. We're still working on those things. But again, I encourage you to go to those sites and look and see how we compare. You can also compare home health agencies, so you can see how we compare to our nearest competitor, WestCare. And again, we do very favorably, but I'd love you to prove it to yourself. As it relates to financials, and a lot of times people are interested in, if you have a closed meeting, they think you're hiding something financially. The hospitals has good years and bad years. The last 3 years have probably been the worst 3 years of its history. It costs us $100,000 a day to operate the hospital. We have 420 employees, and most of those employees are certified or they're physicians or others. It's very expensive to run a hospital. We take it very seriously. We look at every dime that we spend, and we care about it. Our financials, though, are also available online. If you go to guidestar.org, and there's probably other places, for free, you have to sign up. There's no fee, though. You can look at any 501c3 in the country and see their most recent financials that they have published. And these financials are what's on a Form 990 that IRS requires to send to them to keep your tax exemption. It includes lots of stuff, and let me see if I can tell you a few of those. You got your income statement, the revenues and expenses and those type of things, and assets and liabilities. It also tells you about what the entity does. It also gives you the information on who are the 5 highest paid independent contractors that they make payments to. What do they pay their highest paid executives? Of course, in our situation, or highest paid employees. In our case, a lot of that is physicians. But you can see all those. You see all the officers and all our board members. Of course, our board members are paid 0, but they're still on that list. So there's a lot of information that's available to the public. And it's not just for hospitals, but it's for all not-for-profits. And it's supposed to make sure that before you donate to something like that, it's important that you learn about them, and that's there for them. As far as financially, we have, I mentioned we've had 3 very, very tough years, and that's part of the reason we approached Mission to help us, because we knew that we could save dollars on our expenses. We knew that we could maybe get better contracts, but we also thought they could help us on the clinical and management part of the entity. While we are a big company here with 420 employees and lots of dollars in expenses that we have, we also know we need to spend that as wisely as we can to make sure that we can pay all our bills. We anticipate that we will break even. We have used up most of our rainy day funds, and that's not a good place to be, but I'm convinced that Mission will help us be more profitable, and so that we can pay our bills and make sure that what's important to all of us is that we have a strong hospital here for our families and for the town. On this page, I also have for you my email address, my office phone, my home phone, my cell phone, and anytime anybody has any concerns or questions, I want to answer it, because I don't have anything to hide, and I'm so proud of our hospital, and I want everybody else to be too. But if you think we're doing something wrong, please let us know so we can fix it. And this time, that's about all I had to say, Mr. Mayor.
You said a lot, Tim. That's good. I'm impressed. Merle Drummond, public speaking?
I have my comments in those contacts and websites, and I'll pass those out.
Question
I'm a
for Tim.
one-page person, so it all fits on one page, but it's small print.
Thanks.
Hospitals and their
A
funding.
town and a hospital are hand in hand. If you don't have both, you don't have much of either. And we are proud of Angel Hospital
Yes,
Medical Center.
Tim's done a good job.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tim.
John Bowes, tell us about where we're at on this Duke relicensing issue with Lake Emery. Good to see you.
The mayor said, I'm John Bowes, and the town retained Fish and Wildlife Associates to assist them in reviewing the FERC document for the Franklin Hydro Project. And since I work one project for Fish and Wildlife Associates, and this is it. Other than that, I'm retired. But anyway, the town is a recognized intervener in the FERC process of all the Duke projects here in western North Carolina. And as such, you have a small chair at the table. With that in mind, I started to prepare some comments, and was going to pass them out. And this morning, I received a notice from FERC that the project boundary changed. So I'm gonna have to change my comments a little bit, and I'll have them back in the next day or so. But it went from 10 feet above full pool to full pool. So in other words, FERC at first go around and giving Duke 10 extra feet, vertical feet, control around the lake, and now it's back to full pool. But anyway, I have spent some time reviewing the document, and a couple of things that I would encourage the town to be interested in is, number one, is Duke is required, amongst other things, to prepare a sediment management plan for Lake Emery. And I got to researching it a little bit. Back in 2000, 2001, I believe it was, Corps of Engineers along with USGS and the county did a sediment study of the yield on the sediment out of the Little Tennessee River, Cartucajay Creek, and Colasaja. And based on that study, which they said was very conservative because it was part of a drought cycle, they estimated about 86 tons of sediment a year come into Lake Emery from those three watersheds. And of that, about 72 tons stay in Lake Emery, and the remaining 14 tons continue on down to Little T. And this is an item that the town will have quite an interest in making sure that we get an adequate sediment management plan for Lake Emery, whether it be dredging or however you want to manage the sediment, but make sure it is managed properly and not just let it all go. There are two federally listed species in Lake Emery or above Lake Emery, the spot-fin chub and Virginia spirea. The critical habitat designation for the spot-fin chub extends to the Georgia state line up to Little T. And the Virginia spirea is found and is quite abundant along the Greenway on the upper end of the reservoir. One time it was reported that there's no Virginia spirea there. One day I was over here, we were doing a mussel survey, and my wife was rather adept at spotting Virginia spirea, says, look. And it was growing all along the riverbank, and which was quite a surprise to some people. But anyway, Duke will have to prepare another plan for the Virginia management of the Virginia spirea, and here again, we hope to have some input into that when it comes to the preparation of the plan. Now, another plan that the town will have quite an interest in is the recreation plan. The license calls for a boat ramp and parking area on the east side of the lake, a canoe portage, basically a trail around the dam, and also a boat ramp and parking area on downstream of the dam. And in looking at it, and last week, Verlin and I took a little tour, and there's a piece of property on, I think it'd be the west side of the lake. It's owned by the county. It's about 3 acres. It's referred to, I think, as the Drake property. It's go down, follow parallel the river, and when the road turns away from the river, there's a cable across the road, and that's the Drake property. And then if the town and the county can work together, it would make an ideal boating access area. And along with that, FERC had denied the Wildlife Resources Commission a request for bank fishing. And we all know if you give the public a little pig path to go down to the water, you're gonna have bank fishing. And I would suggest it in our comments that we emphasize the FERC that, you know, let's look at the Drake property, try to work out a deal with the town, with the county, put in an access area there and also some bank fishing to where people can come and just park it, can't afford a boat, or don't wanna get out on a lake and just go sit down. We call them worm dunkers. It's a good place to spend the afternoon contemplating life. Another project that I think the town, in my comments, will address is downstream of the dam, instead of having maybe a full-fledged parking area for half a dozen cars and some type of boat ramp. We need to look at the possibility of working with Duke in the county or any other groups that want to get involved and construct a small parking area and what I call a tote and float, something where a person can pull in, have a little john boat on the car, park the car, put it in the river, go float down the Little Tennessee River on down Fort Fontana or wherever they want to go. It wouldn't be nearly as elaborate as have to deal with maintaining a boat ramp and a larger parking area. So here again, this is another opportunity that the town has to work with the county and with Duke Energy and bringing these things forward for the benefit of not only the people in the town of Franklin, but Macon County and the surrounding area also.
So what's next?
I'm going to revise my comments concerning the elevations and such as that, and I'll file them with FERC on Friday.
And how can the town help you from this point on?
Just have to wait and see what FERC has to say next. Okay. But we can, I'm recommending also that FERC keeps saying, well, in consultation, tells Duke, in consultation with the Wildlife Resources Commission, the Fish and Wildlife Service, and the Division of Water Quality, you do this, this, and this. I'm going to ask FERC that the town of Franklin be included in all these negotiations and the active preparation of these plans, so we don't get anything that surprises us down the road.
Questions? Comments? Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Good job.
Agenda item 11, water and sewer, authorizing resolution by the town of Franklin to apply for rural center funds. Who's got that one?
You'll see attached to your agenda item, resolution for the board to authorize the application to the rural center. And this is basically establishing the bona fides and people to sign the application, as well as to also fill out the paperwork and be responsible as the contacts between the town and the rural center, to follow up, especially assuming that we're successful in achieving the grant fund. And a little bit of history, of course, this comes from a discussion that we had out at the airport in a meeting with the airport authority, the county, and the town several weeks ago now. Having to do with the possibility of extending water further out Riverbend Road to serve the Iola School as well as the airport. And the question came up during that meeting about the effect of this on the continued town water supply and the ability of the town to provide water. And W.K. Dixon, the engineers for the airport authority, indicated this opportunity to apply for these funds and have been responsive to work with the town. At this point, this is a simple paperwork step that we need to move forward.
Motion that I, as mayor, sign this authorizing resolution.
I
motion.
Janet, you got a motion and a second. All in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed? All right. And then bid preparation approval for sewer plant renovation project.
Basically, what this entails, let me pass this handout down to you. Take a copy and zip it along. This is after consultations between Gill Engineering with our plant manager, Mr. Wayne Price, and also Jay Gibson. And with the, as you get the item there, you'll see 3 classes of equipment specified by name. And this is a requirement that the town authorize this specific type of equipment by name brand to be included in the bid, because it is felt by our staff and by the engineers that this is the best for the town's sewer plant renovation, and we want to specify it by brand name rather than allowing it to be specified by the bidders. And so by statute, we're required for the board to go ahead and approve these specific items to be included by name in the bid package as a requirement for any bidder to use
Right.
the standardized equipment, in other words.
So level the playing field, kind of get
Yes.
apples for apples.
Yeah, these types of equipment have been looked at and examined. They've gone to see where they're being used in other parts of other cities in North Carolina, and they feel that it is which should be a good requirement for our renovation project.
So what action would you recommend the board to consider?
I would recommend that the board approve these items to be included as specified in the bid package and authorize the engineers to put it out for bid, which they're ready to do here shortly.
Is there a motion to that effect?
Somewhere.
Sissy had a motion, Billy had a second. All in favor, raise your hand. Okay. All right. Boys in the back. Fire department. Resolution adopting hazard mitigation plan for the town of Franklin. Warren, come on up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
How you been?
Good. Most of you remember, I believe it was February 2010, I came before the board asking for you to adopt a resolution approving the Macon County Multi-Jurisdictional Hazard Mitigation Plan, which is basically a document that forces local jurisdictions to look at the natural hazards you have and to consider those in your planning processes to hopefully mitigate some problems or keep some things from being problems as you go through your process. And the way that process works in Macon County would do the plan, and local jurisdictions would adopt it. And from that point on, it would go from there to state emergency management, get their approval, and then go to the federal government for their approval. Well, we made it all the way to the federal government, and apparently they don't work very fast because it's been a while. They have sent it back to Macon County while I was still with my previous employer, and actually wanted us to make some changes to some of the definitions, not the content of the plan, but some changes to the definitions and some more information as far as to how we actually receive public input on the plan. After much work with them, without actually altering the plan itself, which I need to reiterate to the board, this plan is actually just an informational document. It's a planning document. It has no regulatory authority whatsoever. It's really basically for information purposes only. We worked with the federal government, got their approval, and from that point, the process works backwards, and it goes from there back to the state government, who then approves the changes the federal government made. Then it comes back to the local jurisdictions, which is where we're at tonight. The town of Highlands has approved this slightly revised multi-jurisdictional plan. It should be on the agenda very shortly to have Macon County approve it, and tonight I'm respectfully requesting that the town board actually adopt this slightly revised multi-jurisdictional plan. Also, one other thing I need to remind the board, there's some things we can do with this document now that you actually have somebody on staff that can probably rework this and make it more of a town of Franklin document, perhaps when the next 5-year revision comes along. But for time constraints now and for purposes that we really need to consider this, if you were to have a natural disaster that affects the municipal limits of the town of Franklin, that there's a certain list of things that either the state government or the federal government will ask you for when they come in to do your disaster funding, and specifically public assistance funds. One of the boxes that you have to have checked to receive that funding is to have adopted a multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan. So I would respectfully request that you adopt this Macon County multi-jurisdictional plan tonight, and then when the next 5-year cycle comes around, we'll look and see if it's more appropriate for the town to actually have a town of Franklin town of Franklin hazard mitigation.
Mm-hmm. Motion that that I sign, mayor sign this resolution of adoption as presented.
Absolutely.
I'll second. Bob's got a motion, Farrell's got a second. All in favor, raise your hand. Takes care of that. Now let's talk about fire equipment, Warren.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. Y'all remember last month we came out front with a demonstrator truck that we showed you one of the aerial apparatus we were looking at, and we were reviewing the bids that we had gotten in on the apparatus that we had requested pricing on. And we went back and we did quite a bit of soul searching between that month and now, and actually got some pricing on the actual demonstrator vehicle that was out here. We were quite pleased with the pricing that we got on the vehicle that was here. The price that we got came in at $623,195, which was roughly $30,000 to $37,000 cheaper than the bid price on the apparatus when we went out to bid. The device actually met what we wanted. It, with the exception of probably one thing, it did everything we wanted to do. In the matter of economics, we thought, well, that's going to be a good choice for us. We looked at some different options, including some lease packages, which range anywhere from $135,000 a year for a 5-year lease to $75,000 a year for a 10-year lease, which to us was extremely favorable. Most of you remember too that my sales pitch to you when I came here was to, if we could do the bids on both those vehicles, hopefully we would get some bulk pricing and maybe save some money and hopefully come out better in the long run of that. And to be honest with you, when we got those bids in, it didn't happen. We didn't get the numbers we thought we could get. So we decided to be open-minded. We did the same thing that you all do whenever you don't have money to buy things at home. You go back and you look and see what you really need, what you've got to spend, and where you can be financially to make things happen. So we went back and we looked at our specifications, and we looked at some other vehicles that were demonstrator pumpers or engines that would possibly meet our needs. And we actually, through the same company, which is Pierce, we've got 2 other Pierce apparatus in-house now. The ladder out here the other night was a Pierce. We actually went back through them, and we basically revised our specifications to some degree to still look to see what we could get that was more economical for us. We went back and looked at, as opposed to a custom fire apparatus, which is a truck built from the ground up to be a fire truck, we went back to looking more at a commercial chassis fire apparatus, which means that from the truck body back, it's the same vehicle, but the truck would either be a Freightliner or an Navistar or a Kenworth or something. When it rolls off the line, it doesn't know whether it's going to be a trash truck, a dump truck, or a fire truck. In this case, it happened to be a fire truck. We also went back and looked at some other things, the options that were available to hopefully bridge the gap between what we thought we wanted to start with versus what we thought we could afford to put into it. And we found one of those vehicles, which is a demonstrator model. It's a Freightliner. It's actually an extended cab version. One of the benefits of the custom cab was we could put anywhere from 4 to 6 people in it and haul them off somewhere. And that's important, but a lot of times we may not have that many people. And we weren't real sure that the amount of money we were looking at was worth the difference putting it in there. We found an extended cab model which allows us to do 2 people in the front of the cab, plus it has a little jump seat just like an extended cab pickup, so you can actually put one in the back. So you can actually have 3 people in the cab. It's actually shorter than the custom cab that we looked at, which means it's more maneuverable for the rural areas. And actually has more compartment space when we started looking at it just because of the design. That's all good stuff, but what really changed our mind was when we started looking at the numbers. The numbers that came in for the custom truck were anywhere from $400,000 to $440,000 to $460,000. This truck, ready to go, minus one option that we can't put on it that we wanted, but we can live without, came in at $245,330. So when you combine all those together, from where we started to where we could be with these demonstrator apparatus, we've saved right at about $200,000 when you take the $30-some thousand off the aerial, plus anywhere from $150,000 to $200,000 off the engine, depending on whether we went with the low bid, which didn't necessarily meet our specifications, to the equivalent truck that actually did meet our specifications. So that was a considerable amount of money. We also started looking at I begged and I pleaded, and I've called the vendor numerous times to try and work out some deal with the lease package, see if there's some kind of a bulk benefit to putting these together. We finally did get some numbers that came in. Well, obviously, the truck itself, the pumper truck, or the engine, would come in at the 5-year lease on it to be $53,000, the 10-year lease to be $30,000. We finally talked them into a package price on both of them, which we want to present to y'all tonight for your consideration. Just for example, the 10-year lease came in at $104,117 a year for both of those apparatus. The savings that we came up with on that, and they sound fairly slight whenever I talk to you about them. The savings on that bulk lease, if we were to do both of those together, ended up being $1,956 a year, which doesn't sound like much, except when you multiply that out by 10 years, that's roughly $19,500 over a 10-year period, which in financial terms is a considerable savings and overall percentage rate that you're paying for that lease over a period of time. Also, if we were to be able to somehow get this worked into a 10-year cycle, somewhere in the process, we routinely budget $95,000 or slightly over that in our line item budget every year for capital expenditures. We would be able to lease these for just slightly over what we appropriate every year in that line item budget. We wouldn't even have to touch the fund balance we've got if we don't want to, or if you want to appropriate some of that fund balance, you actually drop those payments on down a little bit. Now, one of the next question I'm sure y'all are going to ask me just as soon as I stop talking, I think we've done a very good job on convincing you all that the ladder is a necessity. I think that's pretty much a done deal, that I've told you everything I can tell you, that it's something we really need to have. We've got a 72 model down there right now that's not worth anything other than scrap metal, so it's going to have to be replaced. The engine, if you ask me, do I need that engine, do I have to have it today? My answer is going to be no. I can get by without it. However, the one thing I need to caution you so that you understand is that whether you buy it tonight, whether you buy it next month, whether you buy it next year, the need's not going to go away. You're going to have to replace one. Your first out truck for your non-hydrant area is a 1993 model, which is well past the 15-year prime, and the NFPA recommends that they be placed back into reserve status, or at least not in a first out status, so that the whole firefighting load is not on that truck. That's for practical purposes. Now, we all know that in the government there's practical purposes and there's things we do to get things done on paper. The inspection that we've got coming up that you've heard me talk about and preach about, it's going to happen. It means a lot to the folks in your fire district, in your service area. If we drop those ratings, we save them money. We save homeowners money, we save business owners money. So it's important to them. We mess it up, we're going to cost them money. So it's very important that we get this right. Town of Highlands went through one of these inspections the week of the 14th of September. And we spent some quality time with them that week, standing in the corner, watching to see what they did. We went to lunch with the inspector. We did some around the table conversation with him. One of the things I can tell you that was made very, very clear to us when we were there is that for our rural area, when I send my stuff out to a rural area where we don't have hydrants, is I need 2 engines, 2 tankers, and a service truck to get you the most bang for your buck on those points. If I'm going to fight a fire inside the city limits, on paper, I've got to show you I have the capability to send out at least 3 engines and a ladder truck to get the most bang for our bucks on those points. If we go through this process for a practical point of replacing both these apparatus at the same time, not only do we practically put us in a good situation to have some quality apparatus down there that we believe is fiscally responsible for us, it gets us where we think we need to be comfortably without harming us extremely bad on the financial end and crippling us so that we can't do anything in the future if another need arises. But it also puts us in a good point to be very well prepared for that inspection when it comes up in October.
These lease ones, what's the purchase price at the end of the lease?
$1. Another benefit to the lease is the ladder will be, as opposed to being built and taking about 10 months to build, ladder will be available in about 60 days. The pumper is actually not quite as far along as the ladder. It'll be probably 5 to 6 months if we were to do this.
It's not the one that's got Wayside written on the side of it?
Actually, it will look just like that. I couldn't get Franklin put on it fast enough.
Now, how many, we're talking about 2 trucks here, a pumper and an aerial. What's the next one's gonna be?
Somewhere down the line, we want to replace a tanker, and that's another document I want to share with you all. And I'm not sure, we just finished it on Friday, so I'm not sure it actually made it into your agenda package or not.
It's in
The we actually did do a 5-year strategic plan, and to be honest with you, a strategic plan really needs to be a 10-year replacement plan, and that plan needs to cover things besides equipment. But to be honest with you, this is my 5th week here, so I thought we were doing very well to get a 5-year replacement plan in there with just the equipment itself. I want you to understand that when I come up here to you, we actually have a roadmap for where we want to be. We're not just haphazardly buying things just because they're pretty today and then they look good tomorrow. There is a rhyme to our reason. One of the other things that I'd like to reiterate to you too is right now we have 9 firefighting apparatus, which sounds like a lot. However, based on the amount of things I have to have on paper specifically to show I'm going to a fire here, they're about to get all their points. The other thing this will do to us is it allows me to have a Class A pumper fully equipped sitting downtown here. If all that stuff goes somewhere else, I've got one left downtown to take care of the town of Franklin if we're out somewhere else, so we don't have to rely on somebody else coming in to do it. The other thing that I also want to make sure that you all understand is that's not just me sitting up here. We don't always get along. I don't know if y'all realize that or not, but sometimes we don't always agree. But in the end, we come out with one purpose in mind. And we had a business meeting last Thursday at the fire department with all the general membership. We went over this plan with them, and they all came to a consensus that this was a good place for us to be, a good compromise between what we need versus what we know we're going to have to expend somewhere. I know I'm asking you for a lot of money. The big expenditures are going to be over for a while. We've got some other stuff to do, but I want you to understand that when I come up here to you, and that was one of the reasons we want to look at some other options, is I want you to have confidence in me is when I come to you with something, that I'm 100% for it. I'm not going to bring you something and allow you to be distrustful of me and realize that I'm bringing you something I'm not real sure about. So when I come to you with something, I believe this is where we need to be.
So what's the advantage of buying both of them now?
We'll save about $2,000 a year, which will add up to about $20,000 over 10 years. The apparatus will be here now, which will get us fully functional in time for the inspection next October. And will put us practically in a good position with some reliable stuff sitting downtown. The other thing it will do is, remember I told you we'd have 9 apparatus. By way of folding some of these vehicles in, surplusing some of the older stuff, and combining some of the other equipment, we're going to drop one of those apparatus out, and we'll be down to a total of 8. So our fleet size will actually be reduced by adding these.
Mr. Mayor, to clear up something you asked about the purchase price at the end, I don't believe you can have the lease with the option to purchase under the sort of arrangement that we're aiming toward. I mean, we may well get to the end of that 10-year period and then they decide, well, your lease is up and we don't want this truck back, so how about $1? And we would be fine to proceed with that. It just won't be guaranteed in the lease. Because if you do guarantee it, it's got to go back through the bid process again. Does that make sense?
No, but say it again.
Well, here, look at it this way. If you said, oh, this is a lease and it costs us a couple $100,000, but it's only a purchase for $1, that could be interpreted as a circumvention of the bid process statute. Because if you had a lease purchase for more than that, it would be, you'd have to bid it. So in order not to have to bid it, you can't have a guaranteed option to purchase at the end. How about just trust me?
Works for
That goes for me too, Mr. Mayor.
I'm a lawyer. I know it.
It's frightening at some level.
Well, I think truthfully, I would feel comfortable if the board would get comfortable on the decision as to both units or whatever. We may want to leave that to our finance department, really, Sam and others, to figure out the best bang for our dollar, whether it be 7, 10, or, I mean, is that something that we can farm out, Sam?
Well, we basically come to the recommendation level of the board that we use a 10-year period.
Is it?
A recovery period. That maximizes the point value basically to the fire department in the town. and also provides for a maximum utilization of the vehicle, which of course, over time, obsolescence, vehicle requirements and stuff change. That's going to put the town in the best position to get the best dollar value, and also then to keep that equipment turnover fresh so that we are benefiting from technology changes.
But are we not putting all of our money, if we have $95,000 a year for if we put all of that towards these two, we gotta get 6 more in the rotation somewhere, if we're gonna have 8 vehicles.
The 95 is for vehicles themselves. We'll be well set for at least a couple of years, and at that point, we need to go back and relook at what our finances are, and at that point, we depending on how much we spent, we've still got a considerable fund balance sitting there, which is, I don't know the exact numbers, but it'll be hopefully enough to carry us through.
We're using an estimate of approximately $650,000 in fund balance, plus or minus. It'll be confirmed by the audit later on, but essentially why we're saying leave the fund balance high and go ahead and do the combined lease out for 10 years is it allows maximum flexibility in a few years for the town when we look at the follow-on vehicles to replace.
I understand that. Bob, what you got?
Well, I'm probably the world's worst person to talk about money matters, but it would appear to me that that fund balance is awful high, and I would feel like a probably pretty big down payment to knock down $300,000 right off the bat, and then get all of these things down. I just kind of disagree on not spending money. If we've got it, because it just sits there and it draws, I guess, a little interest, but I'm one of these kind of people that the only reason I know that I've got money is in the bank is I've still got some checks left. But I would like to see us, I mean, I'm all in favor of both trucks, don't get me wrong, but I'd kind of like to see us use some of that fund balance to get these things down a little bit.
And I will remind the board, our line item budget's $577,000, so if you have a $600,000 fund balance, you're over 100% on your fund balance you do have. So we're in a pretty enviable position financially with what we have. However, the reason you have that is you haven't purchased a whole lot of stuff over the last several years. That's why we have some older stuff.
Generally, you'll fall behind. It's just goes part of.
How'd you let us do that, Sam?
Are we voting on this tonight?
I think so.
If we are you ready to entertain a motion?
Well, not quite yet, because,
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment there.
all right, Farrell.
I know $600,000 sounds a lot, but, we're looking at where the fire department's gonna be in the next 4 to 5 years. And we've still got a lot of other planning to do. Right now, we're looking at two pieces of necessary capital equipment that we have to have because we've got an insurance rating coming up and we've got some dilapidated equipment down there to get rid of. I would like to leave the fund balance where it is right now because I think there's going to be other issues that comes up that's going to force us into reducing that. And some of it's going to be that, we're going to have a little extra money each year just to pay our lease on that. So, but there's other things that we're going to be working on for the fire department down there that we really need to look at. And I'd like to leave that fund balance where it is. I mean, we've got to look down the road at where we're going to be on manpower, on what we're doing to protect the fire district, both the city and the outside district that we have. And I just would like to leave that money in there for that.
But by keeping echoing what Farrell was talking about, by keeping the fund balance high, two things got to happen with approval of this lease. One of which is you aren't going to be adding too much to the fund balance in the future because the lease is going to consume more of the difference. The other thing is that by keeping the fund balance high for future rotations out of equipment and possibility of a substation and those kind of things which are going to take financing, financing agencies are going to look at that fund balance in terms of favorability ratings. And the other thing is that I think everybody here wants to avoid the increasing the possibility of having to ask for a tax increase in the fire district. And by keeping your fund balance high, allowing flexibility just a few years down the road, I think you're in a better position to avoid that.
Any other comments? So what would be a appropriate motion?
I would advise, because of the lease nature, well, first of all, you
as
have
a-
some procedures to go
I
through
do.
about the outstanding bids and all that.
Just a little bit of housekeeping first that you have to do because there's an ongoing bid process is to reject all bids as being in excess of available funds, and that's pursuant to NCGS 143-129B. And so I think as a first step, that would be the first motion to entertain.
Anybody want to make that motion? So moved.
Second.
Questions, discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. Okay. What's next, John?
Well, the only other thing to do right at the moment, because we don't have the full lease documents, the thing that's in front of you is more of a, just sort of a letter of understanding between the parties and not really a formal lease. So if it's the pleasure of the board to approve one of those tonight, it would need to be subject to review by me and authorize the town manager to sign. And I don't know, you'd need to specify which of those proposals and for which lease period. In other words, are you going to do the combo, and is it for the 10-year period as the recommendations been?
I thought wasn't that the recommendation?
Yeah,
Both?
recommendation.
Our recommendation was to do both for the 10-year period.
A 10-year recovery.
It just needs to be in the motion.
So moved.
Been a lot of work put in this.
So Billy's motion, Janet, you got something down there to protect us?
John can help us.
We'll make a legal decision here and
So by rejecting all the bids and now making a motion in principle to go forward with this, we're not having to put out for new bids or anything?
No, you don't have to bid a lease, and that's the reason you can't have a purchase option in it.
You told me that, didn't you?
Not in such eloquent words, but yeah.
All right, Billy's got a motion.
Will they come out bid for 10 years?
I second. Combined for 10.
I second it.
This is the second. Now, further discussion. This is a big item. I'm not trying to make light of it. All in favor, raise your hand. Opposed? That passes.
Thank you.
Good presentation, Warren, thank you.
Thank
A
you.
lot of hard work
Thank
into
you.
it.
All right, next we've got appointment of Matt Bateman to fill a vacancy on the TDA Board of Tourism related business. Mike Grudman, your name beside this one.
Yeah, and basically, if you read the attached memo, pretty much explains it all. We needed a tourist-related business person to be on the TDA to fill a vacancy. I've put a recommendation in there since one of the people that had resigned from the board and the vacancy we're filling, they'd be up for reappointment in March. It's only a few months away, so we might as well go ahead and make that a full 3-year appointment. And then if that way we've got people coming off in 12, 13, and 14. So it wouldn't hurt us.
So that's the recommendation of the board that Matt Bateman fill the spot.
But, and it being a 3-year appointment.
I mean, the recommendation of the
Of the
TDA board, and Matt Bateman's agreed to do so?
Yes, sir.
We're gonna have some discussion.
What says the board?
Mr. Mayor, I had sent out an email expressing some concerns, not against Mr. Bateman by any means. I don't know Mr. Bateman. But I have concerns about the TDA and its operations. The TDA is a public authority, and although it is an authority, it is a child of the town of Franklin. And as such, is subject to the open meetings and public records laws. My interest in this got up when I found out that there'd been a vote by an email, which is against the open meetings law, and they were meeting in restaurants.
The media has also expressed a concern about it. There have also been other people who had requested to serve on the TDA, and those names were never forwarded to the town board as they were supposed to have been. We've got a little bit of a conflict because the board has gone on record as saying that this board will make all appointments to boards, authorities, and commissions. But yet the ordinance setting forth the TDA is a little bit different. As a matter of fact, the ordinance setting forth the TDA is full of contradictions. The TDA has not submitted its quarterly reports or the annual report, or if they have, I haven't seen them, as required by the ordinance setting up the TDA. I have supplied all the minutes and the expenditures of the TDA to all these board members tonight. You have them. I brought them in tonight. I'm not so sure that we shouldn't be looking at a merger of the TDC and the TDA at some point. There has been a notice put to the TDA that it should adopt rules of procedure. I have not seen those rules.
The notice put to the TDA.
It's in the session law that it would have rules of procedure. I have not seen those. I think that we need to clarify what the TDA's relationship is with the town board. As I said, it's a poorly written bill, and that being the case, I understand that in the September meeting, the TDA was supposed to discuss the town attorney's, I don't know if concerns is the right word, but he has set forth a letter telling the board, explaining some things to the TDA that they need to be looking at. And I'm not sure that's been done yet. That being the case, I would like to see us table any appointments to the board till we get some of these things worked out from the standpoint of the TDA is a public authority and as such is subject to the public records and open meeting laws. That's all I have to say.
What advantage would it be tabling this motion before, a request to fill the spot?
At some point, we're going to have to face these issues, Mr. Mayor. I have expressed my concerns about the TDA for probably some 3 months. And not sure any of the board has shared any of my concerns. But I'm just one person, and that's my feeling as far if the TDA was a private organization and the monies did not come from a tax, I would feel entirely different. But this is tax money that the TDA is appropriating. The issue has also been raised about whether these ought to be grants or whether they ought to be gifts or whether it should be for, well, there's just a lot of issues here. And I did not include a copy of the town attorney's letter stating for some of these issues that has been shared with me, but it's a matter of public record, and it has been shared with the TDA. So that's why I'm making a request that we hold off tabling until we get some things kind of settled with the TDA. Just what is the relationship of the TDA to this board?
Well, there's two parts to this, and one is it's no secret, and certainly you may very well be well grounded in your desire to take a look at the TDA and see where they're at right now and what needs to be corrected. I certainly have some areas myself that I believe the TDA, I would hope that they would improve in, and I believe they're going in that right direction.
They have quit meeting in restaurants, yes.
But on the other hand, for this meeting tonight, the agenda item is whether to appoint Matt Bateman to fill a vacancy on it. And it's not really here for the purposes of the general discussion of the TDA. That can be made an agenda item upon request at a future meeting. We certainly got some information here that's been handed out in precedent of that. The real question is, though, would it be of overall benefit to to table this type of a motion.
Let me ask you this. In one of the news accounts I read about the TDA, there was a question of whether two people should be on the TDA from the same company. Now, I don't know if that was resolved or not. I also have a question as to whether a voting member should be a member of the TDA and the TDC. I don't know, but it's a question. It's questions that I think that this board has a right to ask of the TDA.
It says the board.
Mr. Mayor, if I could clarify briefly, the letter that Alderman Scott was talking about was written in 2008, and I don't want the board to get the impression that it was written because I had concerns about anything the TDA had done or has done since. It was to help clarify for the TDA, and I completely agree with Alderman Scott that it was to help them clarify the session law, and I agree anybody would need help to understand that thing. It's worse than my description of the reasons you can't have a purchase to lease option, lease to purchase option there. But anyway, that was the reasoning behind that.
Counsel, I didn't mean to imply that, and I hope that the board doesn't take it in that respect. But
I believe the town owes it to itself and to the ones who are paying the monies for this TDA to make sure that it's on firm footing procedurally and substantively. I really do believe that. I've just, for purposes of the agenda tonight, though, the only thing before the board is whether or not to put Matt Bateman, and I guess it could be somebody else. You know, they could send us recommendations, but it's our vote. You know, we don't have to take it. We don't have to take the recommendations, obviously. It's our vote. But the question is, on that item, is it necessary to table that until sometime in the future when we discuss the TDA, presumably in more detail? But it's not. That's not an agenda item tonight.
They've asked us to appoint. I'm willing to appoint at this point. I make a motion that we appoint Matt Bateman to fill the vacancy on the TDA board.
I second it.
May I say something about
No
this?
discussion, Susan.
When the TDA when the legislature was approved, Joyce and I were charged with getting the first members on this board. And it took us 1 month to be able to get enough members. Wasn't that right, Ms. Hanley? We had a horrible time because it's not as easy as you think getting people to serve. And we did, and really we weren't involved after that. However, if there have been some problems, I think we should work these problems out. But I don't think we need to be like the fox in the hen house and go in and tear everything up and start over again. I think we need to look at what we have, where the problem is, and go to the TDA about it. And I haven't been to a meeting. Have you, Mr. Scott?
no, ma'am, but I've got the minutes of every one of them right here if you'd like to
Well,
read them.
I
And I would
don't
suggest that
mind
you
looking
do
at the
read them,
meetings.
so.
I mean, if I wanted to know something, I think I need to go to the board and ask them.
I think
And-
you'll find it in the minutes.
Well, I can put it in the minutes, but I like to see them.
I'm in the minutes of the TDA.
And anyway, I just feel like that we need to correct what we have. I think it's my understanding that they are meeting now in one place. Am I wrong or am I right?
They're meeting here.
Correct.
And if they're serving a meal or something, isn't everybody allowed to eat?
Sissy,
That's not an issue.
if we're here on a motion to appoint Matt,
But I'm
then
not.
I ask you to limit your
Okay,
discussion to
but
whether
I
or
just
not
want to
Matt
say
can
this, that I think you have hard enough time, and anytime you have a town like this, you're going to have some conflict somewhere. And you have a hard enough time getting members. They know more who they need on that board. They can bring that to us, but they know more who they need on that board than we do. Because they're there every day. And I would agree with Mr. Mashburn and Joyce. I think we need to go ahead and
While we're
report.
talking about members, there have been 2 people that I know of that have volunteered, and if it's so hard to get members, why were those names never forwarded to the town board?
Maybe they didn't fit in their approval.
We've got a motion, we've got a motion from Matt Bateman, we've got a second. I want to limit the discussion as to whether or not we put Matt Bateman in or not put Matt Bateman in as the next member of the TDA. Any more discussion?
I got a discussion. I know very little about the TDA except what I've learned just talking with some of the board members and some of that, but I have talked to several people, and I've gone through and I've read the overall legislative action that got us to the TDA to start with. And it talks about in there the type of members, and I think Mr. Bateman would be a good candidate for that position.
Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, raise your hand. Opposed? So noted. Regarding the Niquosi Indian Mound, we continue to gather ideas around the table when we meet, usually about once a month. We're still waiting on a prospectus and a package to be delivered from Stewart and Cooper, a group that we asked to pull together some plans, hopefully of what to do, and number 2, how to get most of the money to do it. We had an opportunity to consider some things at our most recent meeting. There's a gentleman who was supposed to have been with us, and I guess he got conflicted out and didn't make it to the meeting, but apparently it is the end thing to do with Indian mounds under the Cherokee Eastern Band is that sometimes they cap them maybe with like 18 inches of fresh dirt, fresh material, and put what they call love grass. Now, I've run across love grass on some golf courses at Pinehurst, and I wasn't sure why they called them love grass. I thought it was because you always hated it whenever you was in there trying to, but I believe it actually is a species of grass that just kind of lays down, but it grows. But irrespective, we're not there yet on love grass, and we're not there yet anything else from anything real definite. But what we do want to consider, letting the board consider, is cleaning the place up, with getting the signs out there that don't need to be there. And of course, we're getting late in the season anyway, but I wouldn't, personally, Bob and I talked about it, and wouldn't hurt to mow around the bottom and let the mound grow a little bit, you know, especially we won't be mowing it much this winter anyway. But some of those things that don't take any time or less time, I'm sure Jay's boys would hate that if we told them to take a week off pushing the mowers around that. But there are some signs that DOT could remove, private signs, straighten up a few things. And let's go ahead and get that done, and while we plan for bigger and better things for it, hopefully. And if that's the consensus of the board, then I'd ask that Sam go ahead and make the arrangements for those things to be done.
I so moved, Mr. Mayor.
All right. A motion to that effect?
I second it.
Second. All in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed? Okay, we're doing pretty good. You don't see nobody's called for a midnight meeting yet, have we, Sam? Anybody got something on their mind? Sam's about got me weaned to this, and sometimes I almost forget to do it, but I have to have my obstinance and give the board a chance to. So we had a good meeting tonight, got a lot done, kept it moving, I believe. Motion we adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? All right.
That's it.
Sir.